Hey, and welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Podcast. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, a.k.a. the Batman, here in Gotham at the top of the hour. All right. Now, before anybody says anything or get into this, or even before my man Earl says anything, I'm going to say this, okay? Last week, I know everybody's they're kind of whoo and all this kind of carrying on about what happened with Donald Trump in court and everything of that nature. Okay, I'm just going to say this because following politics and following the law as I do, this guy has to be, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this either. This guy is about the coolest, calmest, collective person I've seen. When he was sitting there and the judge said, okay, well, you're guilty. Well, not saying guilty, but I find for the defendant. I find for the plaintiff. That's basically what it boiled down to. Fines for the defendant. Okay, so, and he fined Donald Trump personally $300. Well, with the other the other penalties that he added, such as interest, it was $335 million. Now, with the penalties, that comes out to about $450 million. This guy didn't flinch. Did not flinch. And not only that, but he fined his two sons for his two sons $4 million apiece. These guys didn't flinch. Now, two things this guy can do, and then his lawyer, who she is something. She is really something else. I do mean she is something else. She instantly said once the decision was made, she said, "Well, we're going to file an appeal." Okay, now he filed an appeal, and that could take a few months. Now, he could do two things. He could, like say, when the way she put it, she says, "Well, he has more money than you all think." Now, that's her statement. Now, the other thing is that he could do this too, and which is what he's done to retain his property. Now, I'm going to just sidebar for a moment. So they're saying, okay, well, he made false statements to obtain lower interest loans. He inflated the price. He inflated the worth of his property. Okay, you know what? He's not the first person to do that. And there are points in times that we ourselves have sort of fudged numbers to get what we wanted. We have ourselves done it. When you take an average Joe who inflates their income so they can meet that certain criteria to get that apartment, they're not going to jail because, the point, they're trying to make that money, trying to get somebody in this unit. We inflate the numbers when we're trying to meet that certain number to get a car or whatever it may be. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's right, but you're doing what you have to do to get what you need. Not so much as what you want, but not what you like. What? It's a necessary evil. Okay, as my man Earl could see. Okay, I'm gonna just say it for you, for everybody. Basically, he lied on the application. Okay, and we have all done that. Have lied on an application one time or another, or we've lied. Well, look, it's not so much as the money. It's about, hey, if you're trying to get that car and they ask you a particular question, you're subject to lie about it. You're subject to do that. At some point or another, you get 10 people to come in to buy a car. You're going to get 7 of them, maybe 6, maybe 7. I would say 7 are going to lie about certain things on the application. We've all done it. We all have done it. Okay. Now, the other thing is that this dude could very easily, simply, and what he's done before, is very easily file for bankruptcy. Now, here's how that works. He lists all his assets. He files. They figure out what everything is worth. He files for bankruptcy. Goes to bankruptcy court because technically he can legally do that. He can legally do that. And not only that, he keeps all of his properties. He keeps everything, and not have to pay 1 cent except for the bankruptcy judge, or to pay that off. And he starts all over again. They're not really they're not really hurting him. They think they are by trying to drain him financially. They have this is something else. They have, I kid you not, people have started a GoFundMe page for him. A GoFundMe page. I kid you not. Kid you not. True story. I can't make this up. Now, aside from all of that, what I will say this, and several people, and I will say I agree with several other people when they say this. One of the problems is that we're that the Democrats, that some of you that some of you so love, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel when you're dealing with Joe Biden. This is the bottom of the barrel. The bottom of the barrel, as far as Democrats are concerned. Okay. Now, some of you will say, well, we're not doing much better with Trump. Yeah, well, I mean, that depends on who you ask, and that's a matter of opinion. That's what makes America great. Your opinion, you're entitled to it, but in actuality, it counts for nothing if you don't have anything to back it up. Okay. Now, when we look at Joe Biden, this dude has gotten us into 4 wars, 2 of which are by proxy. By proxy. Okay. When they passed that foreign aid package, $95 billion, that's billions with a B, to go to 2 countries who we really don't give 2 rats' asses about. Truth be told. Absolutely. Don't. But on the flip side, there is a genocide going on that no one is talking about. And it's going on right now in Africa. In Africa. Okay. And get it now. And look, truth be told. Okay. And one of these individuals are our allies, and we're not sending any money to. This is supposed to be, and when they talk about that package, that package is supposed to be quote unquote humanitarian aid package to help Israel and to help Ukraine. What about the beings that are being systematically starved in Africa? In Africa, Cape Town to be exact. They're being starved. Oh, that's right. We can't send money to them because they're black. We can't send money to them because they're not part of our economic development. I'm sorry. I'm hearing crickets on that one. That people is what democracy looks like. Democracy is what you want it to be. Democracy is a fallacy. It is a fantasy. It's not. If you look at all the countries that the United States have went to and destroyed in the pursuit of and went there in the pursuit of democracy, those countries are still war torn, still destroyed. These countries are still, and they're still waiting for payment. Still waiting. So when we look at this situation between both of these guys, you say, okay, when you look at it, you say, okay, the lesser of the 2 evils. It's really difficult. I understand it's relatively difficult to make a decision. But at some point, you have to make a decision. You can't continue to sit on the sidelines like some of you do. Some of you sit on the sidelines, and anything that would be beneficial or make changes or create a different narrative. Now, that's the thing that chafes my hide When people sit on the sidelines, or what we call them Monday morning quarterbacks. You want to talk about all of this, but then you don't want to get involved. You want to talk about all this and what's going on with the world and what's not right and all, but you're not getting involved. See, me, myself, I'm a person who likes to get involved. I like to be the one to say I made a difference. I like to be the one to say I made a change. I like to be the one so when people, or as they say, your reputation precedes you. That's the kind of person I choose to be. That's the kind of person that when I do go to that, when I do go to that great the great party in the sky, or when I get there, as they say, when we all get to heaven, what a glorious day it will be, because that's my goal, to get to heaven. But in the process, when people ask, or they can look back, or they're speaking about me, they can say, you know what, he did this and he did that. He did that and he did this, that, and a third. This guy made a difference. Or you know what, this guy was an influence. This guy was he was an influence in my life. You know, this guy told me something one day. You know what, I stuck with that, or it held true to that. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Not filling people's heads with fantasies about democracy. We have to understand something, that politics is going to be here no matter what. Politics is part of the world. It's part of how things work. No matter what you think or what you say, that's how things work. When you sit there and you try to negotiate with a car note or your rent or a medical bill, you know what you're doing? You're politicking. You're trying to get your point across. You're trying to give them a reason on why this is a better way, or why it should go this direction. That's what it is. It's called politicking, negotiating, horse trading, whatever you want, whatever term you choose to call. That's what it is. And as long as you sit on the sidelines and do nothing, it's going to continue to go the direction. A writer once said, for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And that's never been more of a truer statement. For evil to triumph is for good men to stand by and do nothing. And this is what a lot of us do, is stand by and do nothing. There are some of us that stand by and do nothing. There are some of you who hide behind your religious beliefs, or your spirit, whatever it is that you believe. Some of you hide behind that as a justification of not getting involved. Some of you hide behind your jobs as a reason of not getting involved. Some of you hide behind your children as a reason not to get involved. Some of you hide behind your spouses or significant others not to get involved. The idea is to do what you can, when you can, while you are here. It's what scripturally said. Put your hand to the plow. And some of you are not. First of all, in order for some of you to even understand what that means, you have to even know what a plow is. Granted, this is this is all we got here, but we have to make the best of it. We have to make it work for what we're trying to do, what we need to do. We have to make it work. In the meantime, that's what we have to do until that great getting up day comes. But until then, we got to put the work in, and we have to make it work. whether it be the system, whether it be the job, whether it be a relationship. If you are not putting in the work, don't expect anything good to come out of it. Don't at all. Now, I'm gonna shift gears right quick, and as I begin this year discussing the issue, things with our men, and just the other day, I had a very, I had a very interesting and in-depth conversation with an individual. Very wide, I hadn't spoken to them, and I haven't spoken to them in many moons, as they say in the Native American tongue. I have not. I haven't spoken with them, or actually, let me rephrase that. I had not had a sit down with them in many moons, and I listened to them expound on a few things, and even and um, spit some knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, and also philosophy. And when we had the conversation, because we are like-minded, because uh, we both like philosophy, spirit, wisdom, and knowledge. We like that, and it was some things that she was saying that that made a lot of sense, and it's basically parallel. It paralleled the things that I say and do. It was a parallel. It truly was. We got into the conversation about the current system. We got into the conversation about relationships. We got into the conversation about raising children, what our jobs are, and those 3 points. I mean, and I'm going to hit on those 3 points. Okay, let me start with children on the conversation. As we discuss this, and I was asked the question. Okay, I was asked the question. Okay, yes, I have children and also have grandchildren. Okay, then the conversation continued to ensue about how did I raise my children and interaction with my grandchildren. I said, yes, I do. In fact, I have, me and my children have a very good relationship. Aside from as I've been being totally honest with them, aside from their mother being a jackass, it had to be, I'm just being truthful. But we have a good relationship. Most of us talk more, and as I told you, we talk more now than we probably have, and then one more than the other, but that's just how they are. Conversing, then and then getting to the part about grandchildren, and I made it clear to them. Say, well, here's the thing: what we cannot do, we can't be friends with our children. I've spoken on this before as we were conversating about the wisdom part, and they said, well, they can't understand how people can even put those two words into conversation: friends with your children and friends. They couldn't understand that. I said, well, I mean, as well as I do, there are some people do. They'd rather be friends with their children than a parent. That's why we have the ratchetness of children that we have today. And she went on to say that, or actually went on to expound on that. She said, well, her generation, because granted, she's a lot, just a little older than I am. But she went on to say her generation is somewhat to blame also, and I said and I had to, say, yeah, I had to agree with that, because her generation her generation creates my generation, and then whatever they teach us, we have to pass it down and then pass it down and pass it down. This is how this works. This is how this works. Because I went on to say that we can't continue to blame the previous generation or the one before that. There's a point to where everyone has to be held accountable for themselves first and foremost. Everyone has to be held accountable for their children second of all. When your children are upstanding individuals, that's because you're doing your job. When your children are disrespectful, That's not saying you're doing your job. That's just a part to where you may have lost control of them, or you've been in a type of a friendship relationship with your children. And I never, and I thought I've never been one for that. I could never understand that, because when you're friends with your children are subject to tell you anything and treat you any kind of way. That's what they're subject to do. That being said, as we continue to talk about child rearing and so on and so forth, like I say, I'm not I did the best that I could with raising my children and everything, and hopefully and hopefully they take what they were taught and they use that in everyday life, everyday situations, everyday practicality. And also what I told her is that I demand that my children elevate themselves to a standard to where they cannot be taken advantage of, bamboozled, put to sleep with different things. To where when they're around people, they get to have intellectual, quote unquote, intellectual conversations. Conversations of substance, conversations of meaning. And the reason, and get it, and just a sidebar for a moment. I have, I like to, when I speak to other women, the reason, and also I should say that, I enjoy the company of women, and I say that in an affectionate, not in an affectionate way, but not in a romantic way. When I say an affectionate way, because I want to know what they're thinking, how they think. Get to where I can gauge them on. I can understand how to deal with them, understand them. And this is one of the things that as men that we don't do enough of, is trying to understand that woman. But at the same time, she has to be in a position to where she's able to express herself. She's able to communicate. There is some level of education. Oh, let me rephrase that. I retract that. Not some level, because that's one of the problems. But she's educated to a point to where she can maintain a conversation. She can function. Now, granted, there are some of us that are more intelligent than others. Grant that. Nobody knows everything, but the key to knowing that is to listen. And that's where and as we begin to talk more and more, I said, yeah, that's the whole ideology. And she was beginning to tell a story about, as she went through life and tried to educate this man. And, it just this is a person that just would not elevate themselves. And when you hear that from that perspective, from a woman, where she says that this man just absolutely refused to elevate himself, to be educated, it behooving. And then, going into the question of, well, how long were you in this relationship or with this person? And the answer was too long. So you kind of have to take it and run with that. She said, I was in this relationship too long. If I had to do it all over, probably not, do it a different way. But having that said, it kind of helped me reflect on a few things to say, okay, and my and my take on that. See, there are parts to where as men, there are things that we should demand, that are required, that we should demand. We should. But some of us don't. Some of us, here's the thing, some of us settle. And sometimes some of us settle for less than what we're capable of having. Some of us settle for less than what we know that we can do. Sometimes we settle for an individual because we're led to believe that that's all there is, or we settle for this person because we feel sorry for them. We settle for this person because we're hoping at some point they see the things that you're providing, and they turn the corner. Sometimes that doesn't always work. And even on the flip side, there are women who do the same thing men. And if you ever notice that whenever you realize whatever that you have two people, and one is, I would say, one is more um, intellectually in tune than the other, it's always in reverse to where that person winds up doubling down to the level of the person that they're with, and that shouldn't happen. Or as they say, what happens is that you wind up becoming just like that person. You start picking up things that you normally wouldn't do. You start saying things because you're trying. You. So this is a mindset of trying to make that person feel good, and right now we're at a point to where that's no longer viable. To where we lower our standards, and that's really what you're doing, is lowering your standards to meet this person. And that's the nightmare, because you wind up getting into a relationship, or even a marriage, because you're trying to create the balance. Here's the thing: if that person, whether it's man or woman, refuses to elevate themselves, refuses to educate themselves, then you have to, it's time to close the book on that. When we get into a point where we talk about relationships, when we get into that, and it kind of came to me, and I was like, when you think about it, a relationship, or you're getting into something, this is both ways. So, I don't want nobody to feel offended or whatever. Then again, me. Um, the relationship is an audition. When you really break it down, it's an audition for a marriage, or possibly an audition for a possible marriage. Because make no mistake, there are some of you that are not marriage material. Truth be told, some of you are not. Not everyone needs to be married. Not everyone should be married, because you're not material. You're not marriage material. Some women are not. Some men are not. There are some men who are absolutely walking disasters. There are some men who are actually a walking contradiction. There are some women who are a hot mess on wheels. And then there are some of you who are a fiery chariot draped in molasses on fire, and wondering why nobody's stopping. Because first and foremost, in order to get to that place, like say auditioning, you have to bring something to the audition. And I use that analogy because, being an actor here in the city of Gotham, I understand what that principle means. That means when I go into that, when I'm called for an audition and do a video, or going for what they call a cold read, I have to bring something that convinces these people I am the guy. I'm gonna tell you an interesting story. The character for the Pirates of the Caribbean, the character Captain Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp's character. That character is all John. That's not Disney's. Character. That was a character that Johnny Depp himself created. Johnny Depp got a call from his agent one day and said, they want you to come in for an audition for a pirate. Okay, Johnny Depp, yeah, he kind of like a pirate. He's trying to figure this one out. Okay, yeah, well, okay, whatever. So you know what Johnny Depp does? Johnny Depp gets into costume. Gets into costume. Now, when you've any of you if any of you've ever seen the Pirates of the Caribbean, and hopefully some of you have, and you haven't been under a rock for 20 years, when you see the character of Captain Jack Sparrow, that's all Johnny Depp's, uh, all his. That's not Disney. That's not wardrobe. That's all his idea. The point being is, so when Johnny Depp went to the audition, he went to the audition in full costume, even created the voice for Captain Jack Sparrow. He did that. It's a true story. I cannot make that shit up. Up, up, gotcha. But cannot make that up. And he got the part. My point is this. When you're in that relationship, and granted, let's say, and just a sidebar for a moment, even when you're going for that audition, when going for an audition and going, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You might flub a line, you might miss something. That's part of it. Part of it. But if the casting director or those people in the room are giving you everything you possibly need for this character, for this call, for this audition, it is incumbent upon you to take it. It's incumbent upon you to understand what your job is, what your role is. And that's the same thing that I kind of liken, relationships to, is an audition to bigger and better things. That's and when you think about it, you go into this thing, you have no idea. It's like a cold read. You have no idea. You have no expectations. You have no, sometimes there's no expectations, no clarification, no idea. You're going into this thing. But if that individual gives you or tells you, hey, this, that, and the third, and not only that, but also too, people, this is for both men and women. You going into this audition, you have to bring something to the table. The relationship, you have to bring something to that audition. Bring something, ladies. That doesn't mean your hair, your wavy hair, your pretty eyes, your rosy lips, your boobs, your ass, and your lady parts. That doesn't mean that. I mean, any sucker could get that. But if that's all you think you have to offer, you've already been kicked out the door for the audition. There's no need for you to come to the audition because you haven't brought anything to the table. Fellas, if you coming for you, same thing. The audition, you coming in there, hair unkempt, looking like who did it, what for, how come, pants sagging. I mean, when I say sagging, I mean all the way down to the fact that you can see everything that nobody really wants to see. You got to bring something to the table. You have to bring something to that audition because she's looking for something that is going to either complement or enhance it. Same thing, ladies. Enhancement. When you come into that audition and this guy says, well, you know what, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? How about this? If he's saying, well, maybe try this, a little bit of this, maybe with your hair, what about a little makeup here and there? What about clothes? Let's try that. You know what? Nobody here's the thing. You don't have to be slutty, but you can be classy. You can do that. Here's the thing, ladies. Here's another thing, too. Here's something else that you can think about. This is an audition. Remember, this is an audition. A man don't want to see a woman in pants all the goddamn time. He doesn't want to see you in pants all the time. Every now and then, he may want to see you in a nice dress or a top and a skirt. A little bit of ooh la la with your face, whatever the case may be. Fellas, same thing. You're not asking you come in there with a $300 suit, but come in there with something these something nice to where she will consider giving you the audition, or you want it, and what most actors want when they go into that audition, they want a call back. This is what we call, you go in, you nail the audition, you get that call back. That's what you look at. That's how you you can start looking at your relationships as auditions. But you have to ask yourself, am I that material? And comparing the two, okay, you may have some actors that are not very good actors, but they're very good. They're very good directors. Okay. We can, for an example, Ben Affleck, and just using him just as somebody random. Ben Affleck is a decent actor, but he's a hell of a director. Work on your strength. And when you work on your strengths, no one can see your weaknesses but you. Ladies, if you're going in for that audition, and you have to make sure that you're bringing something to the table. Bring something to the table. If you're one of those women that are just that and granted, there's some of you out there where you're trying to fix your credit, or you're in financial ruins, or some type of financial despair, or you constant car trouble, just various things. These are things that you yourself can work on. Fellas, same deal. Because most women don't want no broke nigga. They don't. They want to be able to look at that man and know that he can solve. Here's the thing: what most women want, especially most women want a man that can solve problems. That work that think quick on their feet and come up with a solution. Be her solution, not the problem. Ladies, same thing. Be the solution, not his problem. There's some of you that rather argue, fuss, and fight than help solve a problem. And I don't understand that. I saw something today. It was relatively interesting, and I just happened to catch it in passing. And I don't watch The View very often, but today it was interesting, the fact that what these women were talking about. It really was. And they were talking about some of the same thing that I'm referencing now about the relationships. And they were asking, what is it about your spouse that you do not like, or they could change? So one of the panelists said that it's a dish that her husband makes that that it's absolutely horrible. It's terrible. It's nasty. She doesn't like it. But what does she do? She absorbs it to not hurt his feelings. But there comes a point to where sometimes it's not about hurting their feelings. It's about being upfront. Hey, listen, sweetie, you're not the cook you think you are. So let me, maybe you just ought to stay out of here. But at the same time, when they discuss these things and talk about them, they come to a happy medium. One of the other panelists one of the other panelists said that when her and her husband get into an argument, she lets him, and he walks away. She goes tracing after him, and two of the women on the panel say, no, that is a no. If a man walks away from you, he is telling you he does not want to deal with you right now because he's at that point with you. This was in reference to some women who have a mouth on them and wants to continuously keep the argument going. One of the other panelists went on to say she doesn't believe in when they do argue. She makes a point that I don't. She said I don't let she said I refuse to let the sun set on our anger. See, that's a little bit. See, then that's quoting the Bible. That's a little bit of wisdom. That's some wisdom and knowledge right there. And even to a point too, now the one other panelist kind of countered her and say, well, no, it's not that I just want to have my space, or give him his space. And then we regroup in the morning to where calmer heads prevail. They had some very interesting, but the biggest one is what one of the panelists said, is that you women, that when that man gets mad and he walks away, or he walks out that door, or he tells you to shut up, stop talking, whatever, and he raises his voice to the point to where he's telling you that it is in your best interest to do that. Two of the panelists said this, that you don't want to do it. And if he walks away, he is doing that, believe it or not, he is doing that for you. He's not doing it for him. He's doing it for you, because that's how things come out that you cannot retract. Growing up, I never saw, to touch on that, I never saw my parents argue. I knew they had disagreements or arguments. But I'm not completely stupid. But we never, growing up as kids, we never saw them do that, because it was it was an unwritten rule that they didn't do. They went into a bedroom, or they went into a part of the house, or whatever the case may be. And I carried that also. I enforced that also when I, at one point when I was married. I never allowed my children to see me and their mother argue. If we had a disagreement, we'll go in the bedroom, or we'll go outside and sit in the car. See, this is one of the things to where this is where you all have an understanding. We're not going to do this. This is also part to where women need to have to understand what their place is. Understand something, women. You are subject to that man. As most of some of you don't, you may not. And I don't mean that in a dictatorship type of way. I don't mean that. Now, I'm going to pause there. Now, some of you men can be absolutely horrific when you're dealing with women. Some of you are abusive, verbally or physical. Some of you are just poor providers. I mean, some of you couldn't stack 5 pennies together to equal a dime, to equal a nickel. Or as they say, you couldn't rub two nickels together to make a dime. Some of you are poor providers. And make no mistake, there's some women who are just poor with money. And then you get two people, one person is a poor provider, and a woman is poor with money. That's a hot mess. That's a hot mess that's just looking for a place to happen. Period. Also, the other thing, when we talk about bringing something to the table, when we discuss this, or when we're talking about this, we want to look at things as being high value. And everyone, and if you think, see now, and don't take this wrong when we talk about this, people. When we talk about high value means point, like I said, what are you bringing to the table to meet that other person? What are you bringing? Because if that person is high value, you best believe you better be bringing something to either meet, if not supersede, to where both of you are benefiting. And there are some men that take women who consider themselves high value. And I understand when I say high value, her expectations are different. She's educated. She's attractive. She's she has a level of intellect. She don't have time for Jimmy for Joe Jimmy for Jim Shoe Joe to be haggling with her about something that has no real value. He has no money. He has nothing to offer. So why am I even dealing with you? Why am I even conversating? And see, sometimes when men run across a woman who considers herself high value, they are intimidated. I knew a man that it was a woman he was dating, and she was a financial advisor. Financial advisor. And he actually broke off the relationship. I mean, true story. I can't make this up because he worked at a parking garage and she was a financial advisor. He broke off the relationship because he felt that he didn't make enough. He didn't make enough money. And I said, bro, if money motivated her and she knew where you work, she wouldn't even gave you the time of day. All she was looking for was somebody to sit down and conversate with. That's the other thing that women who are high value, all they want. They need your money. They don't need your money because they got their own. And see, that's another thing that sometimes women fail to realize. Make sure when we talk about have your own money, because there are men who have their own money. See, it's a difference with having money, but having your own money. It's a difference. There are women who have their own money, which means that they don't need nothing from you. All they want is a simple conversation of you all out to eating or drinking or whatever else comes after. Sometimes some women, they just want to spend money because that's what, because they want to, they want to make a connection. Even to a point, you don't have to pay. Let me handle this. You're not being a kept man. She's absorbing she's buying your time. If I'm saying that right. The same thing with men. There are some men who are high value and they expect certain things from that woman. Now, whether you are, well, and with that expectation, that's the part to where if you see where this man comes from, what he does, what he has, none of this is for you. Make no mistake. None of this is for you. Remember, this is an audition to where you can be part of the production. Remember, it's an audition to where you can be part of the production. And that works, as I say, that works both ways. There are women that are high value, and sometimes these women, sometimes they wonder, is there something wrong with them? No, sweetheart, it's nothing wrong with you. It's just that sometimes you wind up attracting a low, a couple of poop butt low grade men. Unfortunately, that happens. There's some women who will want better for that man, who wants better, who tries to show him better, who tries to give him better, who tries to help him bridge the gap. If his background is a flaming a flaming dumpster fire, but she's trying to help him put that fire out. But what does he do? He turns around and starts the fire all over again, where she's right back where she started. High value women don't have time for that. And when I said high value, you are the one you are creating things not only for yourself, but creating things that you can share with someone else. Creating those things. The same thing with men. There are some women that can be a flaming pile of mess that is on fire, that can be seen for miles. And then they have the nerve to ask, what's wrong? Are you kidding me? And some of those fires you couldn't put out with water or baking soda because it's that bad. In order to want better, you have to do better. That's how that works. That is how that works. when these women go out there and they have these lucrative jobs, high end paying jobs, or whatever the case may be, understand something, my niggas. That's their money, and they're free to do with whatever they want to do with it. But at the same time, ladies, you have to learn how to manage your money. Learn to manage your finances. And when you run across somebody, and see, a lot of women get it confused that when a man is asking about their money or how they're handling their money, some of you all get it confused to where he's trying to figure he's in your pocket. He's trying to figure out how much money you got in your pocket. No, sweetheart, he's trying to help you put more into it. Because if you look at him and you see how he manages his money and how he keeps money in his pocket or in his bank account or whatever. And also too, for some men who, and here's the other thing. This is the most one of a very important caveat. Money is neither gained nor lost. It is merely transferred. Think about that. Money is neither lost nor gained. It is merely transferred. And first and foremost, in order to understand that, you have to understand how money works. If you're one of the individuals who spend foolishly, that's because you don't understand money. If you're an individual who is a frugal spender, you understand money. And money, out of the 3 or 4 things that will destroy a relationship, i.e., that will ruin an audition, and in this order, money is the number one root of all of situations of relationships, i.e., marriages falling apart. Money. Because somebody's either mismatch, or as they say, they effing up the church money. They messing up the house money, or it's not enough of the money coming in, and we got too much going out, and no one is willing to change the narrative. That is the number one. The second one would be infidelity, cheating, or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, whatever your parlance is. But when you look at that, and then there are a few others that you know, and they could vary from the points could vary, but the biggest one, and most people say, oh well, you know, cheating is a big one. No, it's not. Finances are. Because if you're always carrying, if a woman is always carrying that man financially, at some point she's going to get tired of it. If that man is always carrying that woman financially, that's going to be a problem, because at some point he's going to say, you're either going to comply or work with me on figuring this out, or how we can do this, how we can condense, how we can save, how we can do all of these things. These are little points. Remember, this is when you going into this, consider it's an audition. And when you think about that, hey, I'm going to an audition. What am I bringing to the audition to get the part? Think about that story I told you about Johnny Depp. What am I bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the audition to get the part? Hey, I see the lights flashing in the distance, and that means that's all the time we got here on tonight's show. I appreciate y'all listening. I appreciate the comments in the quote. I appreciate y'all all on that all the time. With that being said, not my monkey, not my circus. The Batman
Let's go.
is out.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.